Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Ronan Leonard, founder of Intelligent Resourcing and a certified innovation officer and serial entrepreneur. In his work now with clients, he essentially helps sales rep eliminate completely the 40% of their day manually looking up companies on Google and Zoom Info, and instead he gives his clients the buying signals they need right into the CRM so the team just takes action. We also dove into our conversation around AI and how that's going to evolve or change business models. And Ronan used an illustration of when he grew up in Wales. He described that sometimes it would snow for weeks. And some days you would open up the curtains and then the snow would be completely gone. And he's alluding that that is what may happen with some business models today. Business models that you and I see look totally fine, but then they might vanish overnight. This isn't doomerism. This is just an approach of how business models have to evolve with the changing times, technology, and opportunities. We dive into in the podcast why he refuses to build software as a service, which is how we originally met over 10 years ago, actually, building software as a service companies. We also dive into what he means when he talks about dark data, hiding in your own sales call transcripts, and how pricing works more like a Coke in a vending machine versus a Coke at a bar. And a lot of people don't understand the difference of how you can price the same product differently at different locations depending on perception. And we have a genuinely honest disagreement about co-risking deals and doing revenue share with clients. So let's dive into the podcast and hope you enjoy it. Overwhelmed as well, like with all the changes. And it's nice to hear that even some, like if you hear Kaparthi on podcasts, it's like, oh yeah, even I'm overwhelmed. Like he's saying it. That means that everyone's overwhelmed. That means that even if you're working in it every single day, it's still overwhelming off the pace of change. But let's dive us backwards. How was it before AI and the new tech stacks that you were doing, like your business systems and development and go to market? Can you walk me through like what was life pre-AI?
Pre-AI, I actually had a different business. So you could see it coming, but it doesn't apply to every business. It does in some way, but in others it doesn't. You go, okay, well, we do a lot of things manually. We do a lot of face-to-face things. There's not a lot there that I could optimize using AI. So there are obviously certain business models and use cases where it's going to have minimal impact. But as the rapid chase of the pace of change, there's others where it's going to completely smash your business model. And you're either in this bubble, which I think a lot of us are. You know, if you've started following people on LinkedIn that are talking about Claude Code and Clay before and all these things, you're kind of in this bubble. And there's a real world of people out there that aren't in this bubble and they literally have no idea. They are, day to day, BAU, ticking on with their business, not knowing that there's a famous quote by Andy Grove from Intel is that snow melts on the edges. And so it happens quite slowly for lots of people. They see it, they don't see it. And then all of a sudden it's just gone. I grew up in Wales and we'd have snow and you'd play around for a week. And then one morning you'd open the curtains and it was gone. It happens really, really quickly. And this is what AI is doing to lots of business models.
Okay. So this is a really key thing that I'm helping people through, thinking through myself, writing a lot on, or thinking a lot on, and being interviewed by my agents to help me write and expand on it. How are you thinking through your own business model and how are you building moats to differentiate and protect? Because even like you mentioned, the tech's changing rapidly. It's almost every other day of a new iteration, new cycle, something coming through. How are you thinking about current state, building what needs to be, and then also future pacing or future protection of how do I differentiate or keep my integral moat, go to market structure, either value prop in integrity, while also being open for change?
Well, one of the first things that I've been thinking about for the last 6-9 months is not to build any kind of SaaS or a system because you can almost just rip it up. So I'm focusing on what's the latest thing that comes out or what's something new that I can add on top of what I already know and do that adds more value. So I'll give you an example. One of our clients, they're a private equity company. They've got a number of businesses that they've bought up, which are kind of dangerous and dirty in the waste system. And so we're helping them with lead generation, finding ICPs, a whole number of different things. And so now we've added geospatial technology to look at the physical size of a warehouse or distribution center to see if that immediately fits their ICP before they were doing all of that manually. So it's just one more layer on top of, we call it kind of signals. What are the signals or market intelligence that we can deliver to you that before you had somebody that was going out manually, looking on Google, using outdated tools like Zoom Info and doing all this themselves when they're not TCM engineers, they don't really know the tech stack. We now say, here's all the information delivered to you into your CRM in one hit. Thank you very much. All I need to do is actually action on
Take
that.
action on it. And that's the hardest part of control too. Is like you got gold you're sitting on. Why are you not taking action on it? But so you're looking at, okay, the basis of, or it's a key fundamental go to market in terms of the business model. And I think it's important to understand the ingredients of a business model. And I'm saying it for the audience here. There's your value prop, then there's your go to market, your customer relationships, your ICP, your cost driver, like your revenue driver, how you price out, how you generate rev. Then on the back end is your key activities, key relationships, cost structure, team, admin, strategy, finance, etc. That is essentially your business model. Here, you're focusing on the key ingredient, which is sales, which every business in the world needs, but also it's how you go to market differently versus how in the past you would go to market with calling people up, visiting the site, doing manual research. So you're able to amplify that. And you're using the tech, from what I'm hearing, to find more ways to add value to the client or more ways to give them an edge in their outreach, whatever that may be. Is that what I'm hearing correctly?
Yeah, 100%. So we're looking at things like their dark data. So they're really kind of old school. One of the things that I see more and more is you're going to have this, what we call an evergreen CRM. So again, one of our clients, 5,000 contacts in there, very minimal details. So the first thing we do is kind of enrich their CRM so that we know if we pull a new ICP into there, it's brand new and it's not already kind of hidden under there with an incorrect name or barely information. We then put AI across that. So all of their existing clients, they're getting market intelligence. This company is expanding. This company has just hired someone new. This has happened. And if it's relevant, we'll push it straight through to their account managers. We're also taking a lot of their dark data, things like their sales transcripts, and probably doing this as well, and saying, okay, let's analyze your sales transcript. What are the objections? What are all of the key things that 5 or 6 sales reps individually kind of know it, but collectively they don't. And then we're feeding that back into GEO, so helping them with answer optimization for the LMMs, because they've had some great insights in these sales calls. If people have told them their biggest pain points, the reason that they're switching or they're going from manual to this SaaS, and so then we just feed that back into their content, because then it gets better because the audience are looking for those questions. Surface them up in their sales calls, but they're not on their website and their brochures and their information and their blogs.
Yeah, it's kind of incredible, just on a side note, how easy your SEO or AI SEO is now because of AI. Like it's like the full cycle, like things that you wouldn't think that could just be like an add-on. In terms of how you're evolving the business model, like what are you doing personally? Is it still net new value for clients and expanding upon that? But how are you also changing the operational structure or even the cost structure, teams versus agents versus tech stack?
That really on an individual basis, I find that a lot of them still aren't kind of ready for that. So what they've done is they've scaled systems that don't scale. So working one client that's got 22 sales staff. Another one I've got has got 50 out of 75 staff. They are a sales engine, and they've grown and they're successful, but they've just thrown bodies at it, and so that was been their solution. And so some of those you can't change a business model overnight. I work on cruise ships. It takes half an hour to turn a cruise ship round if someone jumps. So you've got to kind of lead them in a direction where, what do they want to focus on first? Okay, this part. Now, here's something else we can add value to. So you prove yourself and you add more value. Raoul, you know what it's like. It's very hard for everybody to find customers. So when you find one, it's really smart to add more value to them and more value to them, rather than trying to take a new one and prove yourself all over again. Now, that's not to say you want to be a jack of all trades and try and do everything for them. That's not the goal. But the goal is to say, hey, we've solved this part. There's another component we can do as well. Have you thought about this? And just add more value. And so your cost of acquisition goes down, you become more sticky, and you're just adding more value because there's other areas you can see. But if you try and bite off that all in one go, they either don't believe you or they just become overwhelmed and go, no, it's too hard.
Yeah, so you're pacing it and increase in LTV as well. But so you're pacing it, you're looking at around what you're able to do and what you also frankly want to do, because everything that you're able to do may not want to do it. So I think there's also that paradigm as well. Is there a specific tech stack that you like to focus on, or is it always different per client? And have you developed your system to the point where the tech stack doesn't matter and it's the system and how you orient it and how you focus to drive value? Or do you have like a tried and true specific tech stack that you like a CRM that you always fall back to, or like specific integrations or APIs that you use every time?
They just keep changing. So 6 months ago, it was Clay. We're still using Clay, but there's just different ways of doing things. You mentioned, I've been playing around with the methodology of looping agents, and we have to, a lot of them are wedded into some of these old school CRMs, which frankly, I think were great in the day, Salesforce, HubSpot, and now provide very little value for what most of those people do. So they're doing very, very complex things inside them. Sure, very hard to rip out Salesforce.
Yeah.
Because the emotional pain and the everybody uses it and knows where the fields are and what happens. But there are native now AI CRMs that 20th of the price of that and can deliver similar, if not better value. So it's just evolving. It really just depends what they're comfortable with. I got one client that's locked into a CRM. We come in and so we can do all this and we can give you a CRM that becomes evergreen. And now we're locked into this one. And again, there's in the larger sort of space, there's that both fear of change, but also somebody signed off on that. So you don't want to step on their toes and tell them that they've made a mistake. So you have to be, okay, look, we'll work with that legacy CRM. We'll just plug in everything two-way. We'll do APIs and we'll push the data in and we'll pull it out. And we'll do that for you. And you keep your CRM. I'm not going to die on that hill.
No, yeah, that's always a difficult one. But you're not going to the point where you're vibe coding the CRM. You're essentially, I think it's best to use like third-party providers that are API open or easier to use through MCP, but ideally through CLI. Which ones do you particularly like to lean towards, or do you actually vibe code the CRM for specific clients?
We don't vibe code the CRM. My main GTM engineer, he loves looking at faults, and he finds he can hack some of the most advanced or well-known companies out there. So he's going, look, this is vibe coded. I wouldn't touch this with a barge pole. So we're also mindful of our customers' kind of data, because when you're pushing and pulling data in and out, especially when you're looking at 5,000, 20,000 records, you have to be careful. So vibe coding looks great on paper and you can spin up things really, really quickly. So for example, we were tracking all of our prompts inside of a software that does that, about $300 a month. One of our clients got about 250. We built content for them over the last 3-4 months and we're tracking all of that. And we just built our own tool, cost us $20. So instead of 300 US, we now pay 20. We now had to tap into the APIs. We can do the calls for complexity, all those things. And also we've got a couple of additional features as well. But I would never front end that and give it away to clients. It's just for our use because again, internal. I don't want to build a SaaS at this point because I just believe someone's going to build it that's half the price. And again, when you're talking, it costs you $20, you can make it in half a day. Where's the moat in that? Because someone else, even if you try and tell that and promote it with a margin, there's someone else that's going to come out.
But you're building on something that's more important. Is right now, what I'm seeing is building custom software internally. Obviously, you wouldn't, for specific clients who have specific compliance requirements, you're never going to just like overnight build a SOC 2 compliant data integration system or HIPAA compliant. Like there's a lot of pieces that you shouldn't before either visualization or workflow management or something that can help you deliver more value quicker. I think that's the key play, is building internal tools that become now your IP, or either through skills or agents or actual software that you use internally to service the client. And I think that's a key reframe here to think about, is the tool is not the value, it's the outcome. So selling the tool now is a deflationary strategy, in my opinion. But when you sell the outcome,
100%.
You can use these deflated tool costs to sell a bigger outcome or to focus on a bigger outcome. How are you structuring the team based on that thesis?
Structuring the team in a way.
Are you building with like hiring more for people to run specific roles, or are you making every person AI native so they have to build their stream of agents or flows of agents to support them? Is it a flat organizational structure? How are you currently structuring, thinking about growth for your own company based on the, being able to leverage the new tech?
It kind of depends on the employee. So every week in our team meeting, I say one of our few advantages is the rate at which we learn.
Mm.
And so everything else really is, because if you look at AI agents, there's a lot of jobs that are going to be superseded. And there's a lot of people that had kind of broad understanding of things, and now AI can do that just as well. So I don't know where it's going to go. Do you go really, really deep? Or if you've got subject matter expert for 20 years, you can look at AI and the outcomes of that and go, that's rubbish, that's bad. Just got to push back on that a little bit. So I've got a skill that says contrarian. Every time something pops out on Claude, one of the first things I do is run the contrarian skill. And it says, oh, I overinflated this. I hadn't thought of that. And now I'm going to get agents to go out and double check that's true. It's the first thing I do, because otherwise, if you don't really know what you're looking at, you just go, that looks right.
Oh,
let's ship that to the client, or let's implement that. Yeah. But going back to your question, I've got a number of staff that just fit inside of their skills. And as much as I encourage them to lean to new tools and we give them all these things to play, they're just not going to really, really push themselves. And then I've got others that, I wake up in the morning and they say, oh, look, overnight I played around with this and I've learned this. So for the teams that lean into that, I give them more and more autonomy. Tell me what tools you want, go play, go experiment, have some fun, learn into that. And then the others, I just have to manage them like traditional employees and say, have you done this? What about that? And they sort of stay inside of their lane. So I've got two at the same time, which is a little bit schizophrenic. So that's how I'm managing the team.
And then in terms of agent skills, like, are you currently having specific internal, for the client delivery, there's probably a plethora of skills and agents running. Internally, are you having any agents run for you either on cron or heartbeats, or is that still based on a human in the loop, human leads, reviews work, reports back from agent, or how are you using AI in the actual org structure?
Predominantly human in the loop, still quite a lot. We've got to drink our own champagne. So I've just got someone at the moment, which is just, his now new role is to help us sort of catch up, because we've kind of grown quite quickly. We're 9 in staff. And a year ago we were 2.
There you go.
I don't see us hiring too many more people. The reason being is that, again, my weekly meetings, like, you default towards a process and a system and automation once you've nailed it. But you have to kind of understand it and nail it first and say, is this worth creating a system and a process? And again, some of our systems and processes have changed because
so fast.
Clients have changed.
It changes so fast.
And we grow so fast. Yeah.
Once you harden the scaler.
So it's got to find that right balance.
Yeah. How do you find that right balance? Because in the past, it would be you SOP it out because you run that 100 times or 20 times for the clients. You'd SOP it out, it documented, and the team's like, okay, did you follow the SOP? Did you not do that? Okay, cool. Now it's like you do it 20 times and then you create a skill and an agent runs the skill and then a team member manages that agent. But then there's a new way to enhance it. So you would enhance the skill, test it, validate it. Is it just a constant iteration where your SOPs or your agent skills are updated every month? Do you have a cycle, or is it quarterly basis, or is it, how do you systemize that? Because that's something that I'm seeing is like the skills that I built. Well, there's some evergreen skills that won't change, but there's some that are like cutting edge, like something's going to improve next week. And one, the system's going to get better because that improvement, but also there's new tooling involved for an agent to actually work and get access to tools. How do you keep up with that pace of change and harden that within the actual agents or team member skills? And the skill, what I'm referencing for the audience, is like the MD file that changed the agent.
Yeah. I think that is the perennial challenge. Having said that, I actually don't think it's any different from a business 3-5 years ago. Whatever your biggest problem is in business, once you've solved that, everything else gets a promotion.
Yeah.
So there's always this list of, I've got all of these things to do, and you try and rank them in importance. And sometimes we as humans, we do the things that are quite easy, let's do number 6 and 7, and let's leave number 1, let's leave number 1, do number 1 until it's got a critical. So it's just one of those things that is always going to be there because of the rate of change. And it's finding what's the right balance. I don't know. My balance might be different to someone else's. So it is something I'm acutely aware of, because last month we signed a contract with 2 new clients. We're all part of the same entity, and that they all want this kind of delivered now. And I've got 3 more introductions. So, and because we're doing different work for each client, it's not like we do one skill and we do it for the same people. So it's a challenge to get that right balance of
skill orchestration.
take on new clients.
One of the things that I found,
give them what they want.
Yeah, to that point, one of the things that I found that was really useful is not making one master skill, but creating a waterfall system of 9 to 12 different skills for a specific job to be done. And each skill has its own repository of resources of how good looks like, but then also Python hardening to make sure that it references the source code or references the truth of like what to do every single time. And then there's a pre-audit validation. Then from there, it can move on to the waterfall for the next stage. And then that way you can almost have like a library of skills, and then you can custom combine. I'm like, okay, this client only needs this, this, and this. So we're going to combine these skills together. And then you can create orchestrator agents that can run that. And then obviously the team members would have to know what the scope is, but instead of making one master skill, I found it to be much more accurate, faster time to value, to have a plethora of skills with the agents specifically knowing which ones to use. But the human has to know, like a simple, even if it's a simple map, here's what we're going to use. Here's what we're going to customize our options to execute.
Nice. I like it. At the moment, though, I don't have 2 clients who are actually doing the same thing yet.
Oh my gosh, Ronan.
They're all doing almost completely different things. I've got a different CRM. I need this, or I want something else. And look, it'll settle down. It's just been the fact that
you're growing rapidly at that stage.
Again, we also don't work with really small companies. So, which is a good thing. It's about sort of doing good work for organizations where you can make this kind of meaningful difference. So someone comes to me like, I've got 1 sales staff and we're a team of 6 and we want to implement what you've got. It's like, you're just too small for it, because the process and the systems and how we would build all of that probably isn't worth it for you, unless the lifetime value of customer is a reasonable size. Do what you do, or do manually, or do components of it yourself, add a small bit. Because we're working with organizations that, as I said, sort of 8 sales staff, 22, 50, there's that sort of level of complexity and difference that is quite unique to their problems versus a universal, hey, I just need these 5-7 things done for me.
Yeah, I would challenge that, because even with custom work, you can build the meta principles into skills. At least that's how I view it when I would leverage it, because you would take that baseline and then you would build on top of it so you can get the done ready. But again, that's just, I haven't looked behind the scenes, but that's just a way to think about it. How are you thinking about pricing too? Because so I'll tell you a story, and I'm not sure if you read the post or the pod, but one of the guys I was talking to is that their agency gave an AI discount, because we're going to use AI for your account. So they gave a discount, but that's pretty much like discounting your innovation. You can also price per outcome. You can also price per base fees plus outcome. Like how are you thinking about pricing, knowing the cost to deliver is either more effective, or you can go deeper with more value, which I'm more of the value play. But how are you currently thinking about pricing? A traditional agency pricing, retainer pricing, fee pricing, or are you now like questioning how you should price based on your availability to the tools and the ability for you to add more value?
Yeah, it's a good question. One of the things I look at is what's their existing cost base? What is the traditional sort of agency model? And where do we sit that we can probably add 3 to 5x value? And that's kind of about my price point. I look at traditional SEO companies that say, I'm going to use Australian dollars here. Hey, you're a mid-tier company. We're going to charge you, we have been charging you $5,000-$6,000 a month to do SEO for you. We'll write you 2 blog posts or 4 blog posts, and we'll give you 2 backlinks. And then you can just go, I can give you 16 pieces of content or 24 pieces of content for close to half that price. And we can track you in the GEO and all that included. So I'm working somewhere between 3 to 5 times price point. If you look at the staff, again, these teams have had 6, 8 BDMs. And I ask them, what are they doing? 40% of their day is based on the manual research of looking this company up and all these things, say, okay, right, what does that cost you? We could improve that and give you a whole group of ICPs that you haven't found on your CRM. That's worth 3, 5, 7, 10x. And so I'm just looking at that price point. If I can't add 3x to what they're already doing, again,
Yeah,
it's
it has to make sense.
probably a no for both sides.
Yeah, it has to make sense.
Yeah.
So you're thinking
Yeah.
in terms of consolidation for their costs to of spreading the fees across these different peripherals or adjacent things you could be doing, just work with us and we'll be able to do more with that same base fee. Is that what I'm hearing? Is like you're helping like a cost savings angle?
Well, some of those we put a proposal together to his client, and then it's only when we got under the hood that we found all these different things. They were using an agency who were 5 times the price of us when they were delivering these leads, qualified. They were different value proposition. They were actually doing all the phone calls and booking a meeting, sending out emails. Yeah. And then of the leads that they booked in didn't meet the client ICP.
Oh, yeah.
And they were 5 times our price. And then I find our clients also using Zoom Info, $20,000 a year. You don't need Zoom Info anymore. Oh, we're doing this. You don't need that anymore. So all of a sudden the value proposition just got better and better as we looked under the hood. So it really, everyone's different.
Yeah.
You don't need this tool stack anymore. You don't need to do this process anymore. Or if you've got 5, 6 staff doing this, they don't need to do that anymore. They can be more focused on the job that they're supposed to do, which is sales. And so it becomes that combination, that value proposition.
Yeah, everything is a consultative sale, and I'm not trying to dig into specifically, oh, this is how you're going to price exactly every time, but it's just good to know the framing because this is a key thing that people come to me with like, hey, how do I price differently now? Or how do I think about pricing based on what I'm able to do? And I think to your point, that is a huge competitive advantage. It's not saying that you're the cheapest option, which I don't think that's your positioning, but your positioning is here's immediate cost savings. And then here's how we're going to get more value without spending more. So it's almost the trifecta of it's quote unquote cheaper. I'm not anchoring towards cheap, but it's cheaper, faster, and better quality. But you're positioning it that in a way where you're not competing on price, you're competing on value, but everything else comes together because AI and everything that we're doing is more deflationary in terms of tool cost and usage, but your anchor is towards the outcome. So there is a mix of value pricing, but a mix of here's how we're going to be able to like day one, get you effective savings and do more quality work for you. There's no wrong way to price either, except if you're doing by the hour. I don't recommend anyone ever price by the hour, but it's just interesting to hear that.
Yeah, I agree.
It's cool to hear how you're in real life doing it.
Well, pricing is incredibly elastic. Right? If you dive into it, you can buy a Coke in a vending machine and pay a certain price. You can buy in a bar where it's on tap is different price. You can buy in the supermarket. So pricing is incredibly elastic depending on the value. So if you understand what value you're providing to the company by digging a little bit deeper, then you can price accordingly to value rather than price. And also what's important to them. So I have one client that didn't really care about the cost of the sunk cost of the staff, even though we said this amount, we will save them because they're doing all this manual tasks, cared about the pipeline and lead generation. So sometimes people are very cost conscious or about certain things and others aren't. And so it's finding that balance. And sometimes you just don't know. You go in and you've got this proposal and you've done all the work and push on this. And that's not the thing that motivates or drives them. It's something else. And so pricing is, as you said, you have these conversations all the time. It's difficult. It is. It's incredibly elastic. It makes no sense. Yeah. Damien Hirst sold a shark for, I think, 16 million. He paid $250,000 for that. He bought it from Australia. He put it in formaldehyde and then said, hey, this shark is worth 16 million. And someone bought it. So
it's a perception. Figure. Are you finding room or wiggle room to do more co-risk offers? Like it's not new to take the risk of the client, like with the client and participate in the upside. Are you finding yourself more bullish using the tech to do that? Or are you still traditionally just doing value-based pricing and then just focusing on deliverables and make sure that the client's happy? But are you now looking at how can I participate in the upside for what the client wins that I get?
I'd love to do that, but I find that it is incredibly challenging. And the reason behind that is Robert Cialdini, who talks about kind of influence. I learned this 7-8 years ago. whenever you do a favor for someone, it's like bread and wine. And so the person giving that favor, over time, it comes better and better. It's like a great bottle of wine, and you remember fondly. For the person who received that gift, it's like bread. It might be artisanal, it could be lovely, but eventually it goes stale. And so what happens with that pricing model is you could say to someone, right, I want to take 25% of all of the upside, and we make $1 million, I make a quarter, you make 3/4. And so someone that doesn't have that million says, that sounds fantastic. But what happens when they go to cut the $250,000 check, they start going, well, they've barely done anything. And so I find it tends to ruin relationships because of that deep psychological thing around what happens and why it changes over time. And so it's fraught with danger. Tried it a few times. Find people, when they don't have something, they're really, really appreciative. And then once they've got it, like, well, I don't want to give that back.
Yeah, interesting.
So I've yet to find a client that I would really do that for, because I've seen it in smaller ways, and I've seen that bread and wine thing play out again and again and again on small things. And so what's it going to play out on $250,000?
Interesting. I've had it.
So that's just my take on it.
That's a good experience, because I also have, not actually that similar, I have the opposite happen, hitting either we hit performance markers and or like deal closes, etc. But I think that, and I'm not saying this is maybe why the difference is, but I think one of the things that I believe to be true, and I'm betting on it as well, is that there's a belief layer on the relationship between you and the client. Obviously, this depends on client relationships, industry offer, what they offer, their mindset, their leadership, etc. But I think you're right. It's also anchoring the offer based on the mindset of the ideal target that you're going to buy. If they just want to hit the thing and you're helping them achieve that goal and that metric, and the relationship is, hey, we're just going to do this for that reason, then maybe you're right. Maybe it's best not to co-risk and go into it together with the payout. I've seen it in my experience, obviously different industry, different founder mentality, different delivery, different system. So it's not to say one is true and one isn't true, but I think it all depends on the mindset of the founder and the belief that you bring to the table when you're working with that founder. But I do see what you're saying. Sometimes it's easier when you don't have it. It's easier to say, yeah, you can take it. But then when push comes to shove, it's like, oh wait, we gotta think about this. Gotta talk about it. It's like the startup founders giving away equity way too soon, and like they give half the company away when it's like 2 people. That's interesting. Are you though more confident in your ability to deliver value now that you have access to the tools and you're developing agents and AI around it? Are you more bullish on outcomes, or are you less bullish, or the same?
It's a combination in there, because it's also, as much as you can do a certain amount of things inside their business, they still have to have a very good business model. They have to execute on all of those things. So it's a combination. We've got everything from a private equity company who we're doing several divisions for, through that's got a business partner and a chief operations manager. So there's different dynamics in there. It's navigating, as always comes back to people, navigating those, who's it right for, what's the right value proposition, or what's important to them, and finding that. I do think the tech stack is and the technology is going to change and change and change. I think we're on this huge upward exponential curve, which most people just have no idea about.
We're starting it.
And so they can't predict the future. Even we can't. When people try and predict the future, nearly all of them are wrong in so many ways, and massively wrong. So who knows where it's going? I think as long as you only need to be one step ahead of your clients. You need to learn something today that you can test around and play with tomorrow. That's half the time. That's half the battle, just being one step ahead of them. And if you look at the vast majority of businesses, you're 2, 3, 4 steps ahead, because they are so focused on BAU that they're just not looking at this curve coming. As I said, you've got 50 sales staff, you're managing them day in, day out. Well, what are they doing? What are their KPIs? What's working? So few business owners and leaders take that time to step back and
very
say,
few. I think less than 5%.
Yeah. And so do you want to work with those people that's it? Yeah. Even 6 months ago, we had a meeting, and CEO said, we can do this, this, and this. And he said, well, maybe I'll just wait 3 months and someone's going to build that tech stack.
Oh, well, good luck. Yeah.
because he'd been vibe coding, going back to your
Oh
earlier
yeah,
question,
yeah.
he'd been vibe coding. So he was like, oh, well, potentially, someone's going to build that. So, well, if they did for all of the things that you've told us you want to do and all the manual process you're doing, if they did, it would cost you $100,000 a month, probably. So yeah, there's a disconnect between, and there always is, right? You and I kind of met the foundation. Still look at it now. I've replaced $800 Clay subscription with $100 Claude. Okay, great. That might be fine for the fact you're sending, low level numbers out, or you don't care about API limits. But if you look under the hood, there's still lots of other things that need to be done. It's someone says, again, it's like I replaced my whole
Yeah,
marketing
those
team
are lies.
with Claude.
Yeah. Some people believe the
Yeah,
lie, though.
it's a
That's the
lie.
key thing. Some people don't know the truth from
Yeah.
fiction because they've never done it.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's both managing the expectations, both internally and externally. What is possible now, and if you've just sort of played around at those leading edges, and you've tested it, okay, this works. This is going to give us this great improvement, and then you just go to the client and say, right, I can do this for you, or hands on heart, say, look, you're a bit of a guinea pig. We think we can do this. Is that okay? So I've done that to a client. I said, we think we can take the of where your trucks go, and then we'll find more clients along that route for you, that you can then increase the value of that run because you've got this sunk cost. I said, I can't guarantee it's going to work, but I'm pretty sure it will. Let's get the data and let's run that additional experiment. It's about, I believe now, it's about creativity. Yes. How creative are you in the business to go, before that wasn't possible, even 2 years ago, you look at how ChatGPT came out and okay, it's gone back and forth, and that's brilliant. But then it's memory and all those things, like it's just forgotten what it told me 5 minutes ago. It started to hallucinate. But if you look now, you just go, find a data point and find, if it's that important to you, let's go look, see if we can find it and feed that into your intelligence for your business.
Yeah, and then from there, iterate. It's creating that loop, that self-improving loop, then you're orchestrating it. Ronan, I think there's a lot of different angles that we can continue the conversation with, and I think we'll have you back to share how you're growing from 9 to maybe 20 or 30 people, if you decide to go that way, or 9 people and 50 agents running the business. But between now and then, where's the best place for people to, one, thank you for being on, and two, learn more about you?
LinkedIn, it'll be in the show notes, and check out our website. We've grown so quickly. It's probably about 10 videos I want to put up. I just haven't had the time. It's an excuse. It just hasn't been a focus.
Yeah, it's all good.
So we're trying to share some of the things that we're working and seeing what's working for us. It's happening so fast. Sometimes you put it up there and then it's superseded in 3 months. Yeah, LinkedIn or our website.
We'll put the links to the show notes. Definitely try last 30 days and then auto research so that whatever you develop, it just trains itself.
Nice. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you'd like to get more of these podcasts, please go ahead and subscribe to wherever you're watching or listening to the pod. If you have any suggestions or questions that you want me to answer on the pod, or you have a guest that you want me to interview, please go ahead and email me all of your suggestions and questions at podcast@dogoodwork.io. That's podcast@dogoodwork.io. If you'd like to give me public feedback, you can go on Apple Podcasts, and from there, you can leave up to a 5-star review. I would greatly appreciate that. If you like more free resources where you can get my best strategies to help you increase your company's performance and scale profitably, you can get handpicked articles to propel your growth, and you can get trainings and discussions that I give freely online, as well as low-cost resources such as my books and guides. You can get all of that by going to dogoodwork.io/resources. 90% of all of these resources are not behind any email opt-ins. You can get instant access by going to dogoodwork.io/resources. Now, if you'd like to accelerate your progress and shorten the gap between information and action and start seeing results in your business, let's work together to increase your company's performance and scale profitably and serve more clients without the overwhelm. You can request a free clarity call to see how we can best support you to reach your goals by going to dogoodwork.io/apply. Again, that's dogoodwork.io/apply. As always, it's an honor to be a small part in your journey. This is Raul Hernandez. Do good work.